Welcome to Church 247 TV. We are here to interview the psalmist, the singer, the musician, Deonna LaShenā. We enjoyed the concert showing from Journey in the city of Culver City. So now we're here to meet the author. We're here to meet the artist. We're here to meet the singer. We're here to meet her. And so here is where we're going to present to you Deonna LaShenā. Take a couple of minutes to tell us about yourself, Deonna.
So my name's Deonna. I'm a producer, a musician, and I'm also a teacher. I play multiple instruments. I write songs. I produce songs for other artists, including the one you'll have later, Simply Allison, Barvette, and others. And I've played on different artists' albums, and I think that's about it.
Wow, you said songwriter, producer. That's a lot in this business industry, I want to say. What are your thoughts on music? How important, with you saying you're a teacher, how important is it for artists to be able to read music?
It depends. So when I learned how to play instruments, I could play by ear very well. But when you get to a certain caliber or a certain profession, it's best for you to, if you want to get gigs and things of that nature, you should know how to read music, or at least know how to read chart sheets, lead charts. Okay, and that's where the money is. If that's what you really want to do, you'll get more opportunities. There are musicians who have gone far and don't know how to read, but they have a really, really, really good ear. So I think it's important. Even if you use it as like a small map, not even know how to know it fully, but if you know it as a small map, yeah.
What would you call your genre?
It depends on my mood, honestly, and I think any musician would say that. Like the style of music that I really like is jazz, neo-soul. But for this album, it could go under, I actually put it under contemporary gospel, and I did that because it's different genres in it. So I have like Latin style going, I have Afro-Latin going, and then I have like what they have as a genre now, which is straight worship. So I don't limit myself and put myself in a box for a particular genre.
That's why I asked the question, because listening to the entire project, there's so many, and you can't just say this is gospel or this is contemporary. It was so much that was in it. Did you do that on purpose?
I wouldn't say I did it on purpose, but that's just how my brain is. I'm not limited to what I can play. Mm-hmm. I used to be, but for the most part, when it comes to my creativity, there is no limit unless you limit yourself. So
that's good.
It wasn't on purpose.
Oh, okay. So just this is what came out of you.
That's what happened.
This is what's in you.
And because it's called Journey, I was literally going through a journey. So you get to travel through the different genres. You get to travel through everything.
Now tell me about the journey, because this was your journey to 30.
Yeah.
So how did that impact your maturity level? Journey to 30.
Journey to 30. A lot of the songs that came out for this album was when I was in transition from leaving college, when I didn't want to. It was because I just couldn't be there anymore. A lot of things were happening. And then me having to go back home, feeling embarrassed about going home, and then having to go to my dad's house after leaving my mom's house. It was a lot of things happening, switching churches, and I don't know. It was just a lot of things happening at that time. So Journey to 30, you're like literally traveling with me to the point you could hear in the, not the live recording, but the studio recording, how I even sound childlike. That's when I noticed it's a whole maturity thing that was happening. It was a real journey. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So would you compare that to the wilderness?
The wilderness?
Mm-hmm. Like when Exodus? The children of Israel were coming out of Egypt and they were on their journey to the promised land, because there was a lot of things that they didn't know where they were going. Yeah. They didn't know. So things would happen on the route. Yeah. And they didn't know what to expect. Mm-hmm. So that's why I said wilderness, only because you weren't like settled yet.
Somewhat wilderness, but not all the way, because they actually left God during the wilderness a lot. I didn't leave God. I always knew that he had my back. I just didn't know what was going to happen.
Okay.
So, yes and no.
So the yes and no, because in the children of Israel's case, they had a group of people with them.
Mhm.
So in your case, did you end up having a group of people who were with you, fell off, and didn't
Yes.
continue? And what was that like? Because you
Mm.
talked about you had to change churches, you had to go from your
Mhm.
mom, your dad, from college to all these things. So
Mhm.
I'm sure that was a major transition. What
Mhm.
affected the impact of your sound? Because your sound, to me, was like a cry out to God.
Mhm.
It was like, help
The
me.
live or the studio? Cause
Well, I've
studio.
had both, but I think
Okay.
the studio
The
one
studio
was
one
more
was.
that emotional.
That's why the studio version starts with "Help Me" for that reason. It was a cry. So, back to your question. Yes, I've had different groups as everybody has had, but once I get close to people, I think the detachment from that is what was really hurting me, like emotionally. So, yeah, had lots of friends and a group of friends. Two of them even helped me write "Good to Me" for one of them, and then later that dropped off. That's mostly because we're not where we were. I'm gone. They moved. Everybody's like going their separate ways, trying to keep in contact, but it doesn't really happen. Then God placed in my life new people as I transitioned to a new church, and then eventually those people kind of like died off. I don't even know how. It just like not died off. They're still alive, but they kind of left. But yeah.
So this was a major, major transition.
Mhm.
So what made you feel like you needed to do this project now? Because you've been, how long have you been singing?
Um, since I was a child.
Oh,
Yeah, since I was
okay.
a child.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you've been
pretty
doing this for a long time.
yeah.
So what made you do this project now? Like the rush now?
Um, it was more like I felt an urgency that it just needed to get out. I've been writing songs for a long time, but before I started writing songs for Journey, I used to just write choir songs. And then Good to Me actually started all of Journey, and this is what really started the album is Good to Me. And I call that song like my baby because that song right there. In fact, let me just talk about Good to Me right now because that'll get us where. So Good to Me started the whole album off not knowing it was going to be an album. I always used to write, first I used to write choir songs, then I would always write instrumentals. Always had songs with instrumentals, but I didn't have the words for it. Because in that time, I didn't have any words. Like, I couldn't express myself. But sometimes I would write poetry. So Good to Me was one of those. I was just like fed up. I was working 3 jobs, living in Fullerton at college, and then like I was on a high-rise building patrolling, doing security like a lobby ambassador. And all of a sudden I got the melody for Good to Me. Soon as I got off of work, because I was swing shift, I got off at 11 p.m. I went to my friends. I was like, yo, this is how I'm feeling. I need y'all to write it out because they're poets and they were writers, like film writers. I said, this is how I'm feeling. I need y'all to write it out and I'll puzzle it together. And that's how Good to Me happened. Not knowing again, this was going to be the album because Good to Me was written in 2008, 2009.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so other things trickled in there and I just started getting the song. Like, Wait, I was sitting on the floor at my dad's house when I lived there, and I was like, yo, God, I need a time with you. And so I just started playing the guitar, and mind you, I didn't really play the guitar like that then. I just started playing the song.
Wow.
And then I was just crying, like, I'm waiting on you, and that went from there. That was a whole thing in itself, but...
So how has the project changed you?
I think after it finally dropped, it was a release, but I didn't listen to it. I didn't listen to it because, one, I didn't like how I sound. I was like, I don't sound like that. Because I sound like a kid in the first one. And I'm just like, I didn't really listen to it. And at the same rate, when it released Help Me, because Good to Me, I mean, that whole album came out 2018. That's around the same time my uncle passed away. So Help Me was the very first song, so I didn't really listen to the album.
Oh, okay.
But how has it helped me? And I think it was a big release. It was like so many things that have been built up, and I don't really talk to nobody. And since I was able to let it out, it just helped me move forward and just go.
So music is attached to your soul.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it makes a difference when someone's just listening to it just for a nice song.
Yeah.
But when it's in your soul, it does something different.
Yeah.
Would you compare yourself to any other artists? Is there anybody that you would say you're similar to, or?
I wouldn't compare myself, but before, friends, like when I lived in Fullerton, that whole era, they would always compare me to Alicia Keys because she came from a classical background and then she would switch it and put it to neo soul, change classical music, and that's what I used to do. That's all I used to do, to the point I knew how to play every Alicia Keys song.
Wow.
Between her, India.Arie, and Jill Scott. So they would compare me to Alicia Keys like all the time. There go Alicia Keys, because DJ Keys too. So they would do that. And then later, growing into my own, I don't know anybody I would really compare myself to.
I look at Beyonce, and she doesn't play any music.
No.
But she dances, but her skill set and her perfectionism with sound, she doesn't stop until she's perfected it.
Yeah.
I see that in you. Even sometimes how you talk, the way you speak, that's how she talks.
No.
So has anybody ever compared you with her?
No, this would be the first. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, only because there's a perfection level.
Yeah.
And she doesn't stop. She studies. She studied every artist that she ever wanted to look up to, like Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
She studied him, real hard and done all his dances and all these things. So she studied Prince. So she perfected the sound that she made from herself, her own vocals, but she studied the artist first.
Yeah.
So do you do that as well? Like you brought up Jill Scott, Alicia Keys.
Yeah. Well, because at first I always used to say this. I want to play behind. This is I want to play behind Alicia Keys so she could hear how her song really goes. That's what I used to say.
Wow.
She can sing, I'ma play it. This is how your song really go. I used to always say that. Her, and then I used to want to be Jill Scott's background singer. And then later when I kind of start getting out of R&B, but I still like the sound. I used to want to be a background singer for Israel Houghton. That's something I used to want to do, but as far as studying, it just depends. So sometimes I get stuck to somebody and I'll just study them for however long, and then that comes out in my sound. That's why I can't put myself in a box, because sometimes it depends on who I'm studying at that time.
Right.
Sometimes, honestly, I don't always think of myself as an artist. I think of myself as the producer, though. My time where I really enjoy, not saying I don't enjoy it as an artist, is when I'm producing for somebody else, because that's where my sound, I'm like, this is what I want my stuff to sound like. It sounds better when I'm producing for somebody else. Like everything, like from lo-fi beats to jazz to, like, I don't know, it could be Latin to pop. I can do that with when I'm producing for somebody else. But when it comes from me, it's like sometimes I kind of get stuck in my head. And so, yeah.
Well, Alicia Keys, she's going to play for you. Alicia Keys, you're going to know what it sounds like, because it's already spoken out in the atmosphere. So we'll see you soon, Alicia. Now, going to your Journey Live concert, how difficult was that with you being the musician, the producer? This is who you are, what you do. But now you're not on the keys. You're not on the drums. You're not on any of the instruments.
Yeah.
What was that like for you?
Some people thought I was going to be nervous, but I actually wasn't nervous. It's because I had already had a dream about it. So, and the dream was years ago. I was still living in Fullerton. Everything seems to me happened in Fullerton. When I was living in Fullerton, I had dreams that I was like on a stage singing in front of people, but in another country. I was in Japan, and I was there twice, and I was singing. So for Journey Live, once I was actually up there singing, I saw that in my head while it was happening. Wow. So I was fine. It was like I was in my element. And again, when I was in Fullerton, I led worship out there a couple of times. And it went back to that dream where I wasn't on the keys. And it's mostly because I noticed there when I would lead worship there, I would be playing the piano, but I like to engage with everybody. And I feel like I'm limited. I can't do that on the piano. I want to go into the audience. I want to go be with you guys. So that's why I prefer not to play. Because then I'll start concentrating on my instrument and not really
engage.
I won't. I'll just, I'll do
Wow.
that.
Wow. So how did this music come to you? Is this something that your family does? Is this a inherited trait?
Yes, but for all of this, I say my mom and my grandpa. Like, my grandpa noticed when I was born and when I came home that I would hum myself to sleep. And he said to my mom, like, Lynn, that baby is humming herself to sleep, and I still hum myself to sleep. If I really can't sleep, I start singing myself to sleep. And so he noticed it then, and then he would just have me by him on every instrument. So he played piano and he played guitar mostly, but I would be with him, and we would always have jam sessions in in our studio in that room. And then my mom, she's always been in choirs, and she was pregnant. I was with her and while she's traveling. Yeah, because they would be on tour with Testimonial, and so she was pregnant with me at the time. And then when she had me, I would be singing, still go to all the rehearsals. She was over the youth. I would be there, me and my cousin George. We would be there at everything. So it's always been around me. And then when I lived with my dad, I learned that he played the saxophone.
Oh, wow. So both
in middle
sides.
school. Yeah, and then my mom's birth side of the family, the maternal side, I learned that my grandmother played the piano, my uncle played the piano.
Wow.
I got that piano from them, and yeah, so it's like literally on both sides, the birth side and the adoptive side.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's all around.
So with you also being a teacher, and we're looking at how in many schools, they don't even offer music any longer.
Yeah.
What do you say about that being removed from the school system? And also, what do you say about the importance of music, teaching it to students?
Well, I teach music from 3 months till whatever age. And so I learned like the impact that you have at such a young age and how everybody is musically inclined. It's just up to the adult who's around them to develop it. So if you don't develop it, then it's going to leave you. Yeah. So the importance of it, I mean, scientifically, they'll tell you your brain is connected to it with the neurons and everything. Intelligent musicians are very intelligent. There's so many things that are connected to that could be a completely different episode, but the importance is it gives them like a foundation and behavior wise, because that can be their outlet, because a lot of times kids, they don't talk what's going on around them. Sometimes they can't, unfortunately, talk. So music is their outlet instead of them doing something else. And it just kind of just changed their whole demeanor and how they look upon life, if that makes sense. So now, because I am a teacher, I actually do see music in schools because I'm a music teacher. And when I was younger, I had music too in schools. But I don't know if I can fully answer that question all the way, but where I've been, I've always seen music in schools.
And so you're also a school owner.
Yeah.
So with you having schools, teachers, students, you're seeing how it helped you being the first student of your grandpa, and you're seeing how this is also a language, for students to be able to express themselves.
Yeah.
How important is it for this program to be in the school? And tell us about the school that you own, and tell us about the programs and how effective that is to the school.
Yeah, so I own this school called Music Rhapsody. It was founded in 1983, before I was born. The founder is Lynn Kleiner, and so she was in Arizona and Chicago. She saw how every school there had music, and I guess at that time, when she came to California, there was no early childhood music. So it was put on her heart to start the music program here. And that's where it comes, where she started with 3 months and understanding how impactful it is in the womb for a child to have music and how it impacts them. And so, what was the question again?
How important it is to have music education in the schools, because you own the school, but you also have other school sites where your company is.
I think it's important because we're a part of their, depending on how old they are their language development, their social emotional skills. We're literally a part of them growing up. So that's why I think it's important. And it goes back to, it can be an outlet for them. They don't necessarily have to be musicians when they grow up, but they can go and be doctors. They can be whatever they want. A lot of doctors, they have a background in music too as a kid. So music is just very important. I'm trying to kind of limit it because it could go elsewhere. I could talk about it for.
Okay, so last question, because you are the artist, you are the writer, you're the producer, you own the school, you're very successful with these areas. You're gonna have a sit down with Alicia Keys. You're gonna let her know how her music should sound, and that's gonna be an awesome experience. It's gonna be awesome. I want to talk about the frequencies, because with you dealing with, I mean, I saw a movie called Frequency before. We watched it. Yeah. And the reason why I'm going here is because the classical music, different styles of music, will also affect how you think, the neurons and so forth. Yeah. So how important is classical music?
It's the calming frequency. So if you're listening to classical music, and you can look this up and see the research done on it. If you're looking up classical music while your child is in the womb, they tend to come out like more calm. People say they're more intelligent. I don't really agree that they're more intelligent, but they are more calm, as opposed to if you were listening to rock and roll or like really heavy metal rock. Something's happening in the womb. And you can attest to that for those who listen to it. When they come out of the womb, it just changes their atmosphere entirely. So like you can listen to classical music to do homework, to study. Jazz music, you might listen to it while you clean it up or something that gets you upbeat and movement. So classical is like real calming. That is the study mode, if that makes sense.
And I'm bringing that up because most people, when they hear the project Journey, they say, this is so calming. They'll say, I had so much peace after I listened to it. That's feedbacks that I've gotten, people who've contacted me. They couldn't believe how calming it was. They said they just had to hear it over, especially Come Holy Spirit, Come.
Wait, yeah.
Yeah, wait. So they were really talking about, this was the most peaceful music I have ever heard. And it just impacted them.
I think it's what I was going through came out, and that's what they felt. So Wait was calming. It was calming for me when I was playing it on the guitar, to the point where I was just waiting on the Lord, literally, for a long time, sitting on the floor. Then I started boo-hooing. And then next thing you know, I'm in the Heavenly Orchestra.
Wow.
I put my guitar to the side, and that was my first time directing the orchestra.
Wow.
So, yeah, I get it.
Wow.
But again, it is called Journey for a reason. You really take the journey with me. So how I was at that time, you hear it, but then you do have that calming, because at the end of it all, I'm calm, I'm fine.
Right. Why don't you tell us about the songs in particular for this project?
Help Me, my Uncle George actually wrote that song. He wrote the majority of it, and at that time, there was a play coming out that we did, and that's when he said, let's release this song, and so I did the music for him for that song. And then, so, before he passed, I asked permission, because he was fine, like, before that happened, I asked permission if I could do the song again and put it on my album. He said yes, and then, so, I kind of revamped it, added a couple of things to it, and that song is called Help Me. So, there's that one. I already talked about Good to Me. What's another one? A Minstrel's Praise. So around the time for A Minstrel's Praise, this is the one I sing in Portuguese and I sing in Swahili. Now, the English version of it, I was talking to God and I was like, I want to write a song where it's lyrical like Jill Scott. And like poetic like Jill Scott. So I'm like, you're the joy of my salvation, pure gratification, life you give to me, your love you give to me, it ignites humility. So just that wordplay.
Oh, like the poetry that you
Like
talked
poetry,
about.
because
Oh,
I used to write
wow.
poetry too.
Oh, okay.
And so when I'm in that zone, I kind of think of somebody else that I admire, who I'm really into. And I was thinking of Jill Scott at that time. And then but I got the initial words from the Psalms. So I think it was Psalm 51 and it was another Psalm. It was just one line and I revamped it and like kind of played with it to find out how I would want it to flow together. So that's a minstrel's praise.
Wow.
That one is fun, and then you get to hear the different types of drums. So if it's in Portuguese, I have Brazilian drums playing in the background. Swahili, I have African drums playing. And then when we sing English together, we're all together again. So I have both of them playing at the same time.
Wow.
So that's a minstrel's praise.
Okay.
What's another one? We Worship You. So We Worship You happened, Joanne Rosario. Do you know her?
Yes.
She used to sing with Fred Hammond. I love her. And so she used to, I think she still does have it. She would have prayer at 3 in the morning, her time, but it was on Fridays. I think it was 5 my time or like 6 my time. And so I would be on prayer with them. And then one time her husband was like, babe, sing a song of the Lord. Just sing a song. Just sing. And she's like, okay, we lift our hands to worship. So Joanne Rosario wrote that song. And I added to that one too.
Oh, wow.
And so while she was singing it in the live, I was just playing behind her on piano. I'm playing the piano. And then the song kept sticking with me. So then afterwards, I was like, I'm about to finish this song. So I finished the song, added things to it, harmony and everything. And then I sent it to her through Twitter. I sent it to her through her email and something on her website. And so when I did that, even the credits for like my performance rights, the songwriters, Joanne Rosario and me.
Oh,
so
wow.
that's how We Worship You came.
Did she ever respond?
No.
Joanne Rosario. Joanne Rosario. We need you to respond. 5 o'clock prayer person. We need you to respond. Oh my. Okay.
Yeah. So that happened, and so it's a song of the Lord. So sometimes it just comes.
Right.
Well, most times it comes sporadically. So I'm like, she probably gets emails all the time. The team not even knowing.
Look, this is not a regular. Let the Lord lead you, Joanne Rosario.
Yeah. So that song is yours and mine, and that's how that song happened.
Wow.
Like right on the spot. What's another song on there? Holy and Righteous. That song is from my childhood.
Oh, okay.
So I, middle school, high school, we were taught this song. And that's why at the live, a friend of mine knew the song. And he was like excited, like, oh, I remember that song.
Oh.
And so on the studio recording, there's a part that I had taken out where we were just singing slow about how holy and how righteous God is. And so at the live recording, I said, we have to do it. And at the rehearsals, they were like, what? What is this part? And I was like, we have to do this part. This is the original song of Holy and Righteous. I will bless thee when I rise, O Lord, you're holy and righteous. And then it goes into, thy word, O Lord, is a lamp unto my feet. And that's scripture.
Wow.
And then the rest of it, I took it and I started vamping like how I'm standing because you're holy and righteous. You gave me this strength. And so now I'm able to stand.
Wow.
That's Holy and Righteous. What other song was there? There's
8
another
songs.
one. Yeah, there's 8. So, well, this one isn't a song, but it's an overture. I wrote this overture in 2010 or 11 in Fullerton. This was my first orchestral cue written in a digital audio workstation, what you use to compose music electronically, digitally. And so it was an actual assignment that was given to us.
Oh, wow.
And in my mind, I was like, what am I going to do? And so at this point, the professor was teaching us the different ranges of if you're a keyboard player and you don't have the strings next to you right away, you need to know the right range of the instruments for the orchestra. So literally, he's telling me the range. So you're not going to have a trumpet you won't have a trumpet play a bass part. in the low range. You won't have a violin who is really up high playing the basses. You won't have a bass play way up here. And so he kind of gave us those dynamics on the piano. So anyways, he said, here's your assignment. And so in my mind, I had Chasing After You in my head. And so the part dun 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 dun. I'm chasing after you. So I had that in my head, and I was like, what if I slow it down and I just go dun 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 dun.
Oh,
when I did that, and then I started hearing everything else.
Wow.
Pum 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 pum. Like I started hearing all this stuff, and that's how. What is called the King's minstrel. I forgot what I call it. The King is Coming. That one is called that.
That was at the end, the very beginning.
Yeah,
of the
at the very beginning of the live. So that's the overture. But at first it was just called an orchestration cue. But when that happened, I would see like the first time I saw it, I saw like medieval. You know how kings and everything come in for a medieval court. That's what I saw in my head because I was writing for film at the time. When I did the orchestration cue, I was writing for film, character music for video games. That's what I was doing.
Oh, wow.
So in my head, I had that in my mind, like, this is like kingly. And then later, when I started learning other things, like on the spiritual side, I started seeing like flags going, different royal colors, like specifically purple and like actually my favorite color is turquoise and purples and stuff. And then that's when I felt like, no, the king is coming. Like the king, our king is coming. He's coming. So it felt like royalty happening. And then there's actually a part 2, but I haven't released it.
Oh, wow.
Because right after he's coming in, then that's when the dancers dance before him and everything, and the musicians. So there's a part 2 to it.
Wow. Can't wait to hear that one.
Yeah, and that one's already been done. I just haven't released it.
Wow.
But yeah, and then after that, then there's a part 3. It kind of reminds me of like symphonies. You have different parts. You have allegro. It's pretty fast. You have adagio, which is slow, and then you have that's real up tempo. It tells a full story, and so it's written in 3 parts.
Wow. Oh, that's gonna be powerful.
Yeah. There's that. And then, what else? What's another song? We did Help Me, the overture, Good to Me. What am I missing? We Worship You, Holy and Righteous. Breathe. That's the one. Breathe. So, Breathe, my aunt, who is also one of my artists, part of Barvette, reminded me that when we were at this church, she came up to me. She was like, hey, Deonna, this is what you playing. I said, huh? And then she said, you're playing this. You're the Lord of my heart. That's what you're playing. I said, okay. Then I went home, and I kept hearing it. Wow. Then I started hearing Breathe, and I was like, okay. Then I started hearing Sing, and I was like, isn't that a scripture? So I looked it up, that the Lord sings over us. And that's how it kind of unfolds with Breathe.
Wow. Oh, yeah. That's powerful.
Yeah.
Wow. So now that you've had your full concert, you've gone ahead, and you got other artists coming, what are you doing now? Well,
I'm the owner of a school, which we already said. The owner of a school, I'm still an artist, but I've mostly been producing. Mostly, and not just producing for music, producing for film now. That's what I mostly do. Wow. So I'm always busy. I'm always doing something. So that's what I'm doing. So if you look up my site, it says teacher, artist, and producer, because that's my life. That's what I do.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for this interview. And for those of you who have not heard Journey, you do want to get the CD. Get it. It's available for purchase. You can get it on all music streams. Find it on YouTube, but all music stream outlets. You do want to get the CD, but you know who the person is now. The powerful Deonna LaShenā Johnson. All right. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next week.